Morning guys, welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here, thanks for stopping by. Today I thought I would do a 3-year ownership review of my Audi A6 Avant SE. I've got this car on lease hire, personal lease hire, and it goes back to Audi in July, in a couple of months. So before it goes back, I thought I'd do an ownership review and let you know what I thought. So first of all, let's talk about the looks. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail here because at the end of the day, it's an Audi A6 Avant. So it doesn't look particularly great. It's also not the sport model, so it's not the S line or the RS or the S model. It's the SE model. So it doesn't come with fancy alloys or blacked out trim or anything like that. The only good point I would say about the fact that the alloys are pretty small is the fact it's got big tyres on it, and curbing these alloys, he says, touch wood, is pretty much impossible. But it looks okay in this sort of bronzy silver colour. But at the end of the day, it's an Audi A6 Avant family estate car. So I think that's all we'll say about the looks. Let's have a look at the interior. So getting into the boot is nice and easy. On the key fob here, the middle button there opens the boot remotely, like so. And when you go inside, you'll see that it's got this screen that can go over the top. It's got another one down here which I haven't actually got in, and the boot is pretty huge. I think it's 560 litres with the seats up. And then if you put the seats down, it gives you a massive 1860 litres of boot space. And you've got the little cubby holes in the side here so you can put things in. And then you've got your tie down brackets on each side. And then at the top here, when you want to close the boot, you just press this button and it shuts the boot. And this is all standard. Going into the back, again, good amount of space. Leather is standard, and then in the middle you've got your climate controls for the rear passengers, and you've got your Isofix containers with decent size cubby holes to fit your drinks and everything else in. Okay, so inside the cabin, this is the SE model, like I've mentioned, and it comes standard with things like leather seats, sat nav, rear parking sensors front and back. But first of all, I'll tell you a couple of things inside that really annoy me a little bit. The first thing is down here we've got the cup holders, and yes, there's 2 cup holders and they're good, but this centre armrest, when you put cups down, you go to Costa, Starbucks, whatever your preference is, and you put them in there, they're actually quite difficult to get in and out. And plus, when you do have a cup there, because this is the manual box, which I'll get into later, trying to hold that or change gear when you've got your cups down here is actually a little bit difficult. Another thing, just over here, don't know how well the camera will pick it up, but on the silver trim, which does look quite nice, it does pick up scratch marks quite easily, and when it does go back to Audi, that may be something that they pick up on. So starting it up, it's got the start stop button just down here. You can see the screen going up, which is quite nice. I do quite like the screen going up. However, another thing that I will mention is the infotainment system on the Audi. Now obviously this Audi first came out in about 2011, 2012, so it is getting a bit dated, if I'm brutally honest. You'll see here that the infotainment system is, the graphics on it aren't great. There's not a huge amount of information compared to the new Audis. You scroll through the infotainment system by this button here, and it's relatively easy to use. But also as well, you've got the information in the middle of the screens. And again, this is looking a bit dated. You can scroll through and you can, you know, check what you actually want in the information. So I can go through there: driving time, fuel consumption, average speed, distance covered, all that sort of good stuff. So it's got the information you need, but again, it is starting to look a little bit dated. You've got the air conditioning, climate control down here, and then you've got your CD player, and things like your start-stop buttons just here, your parking sensors, and traction control on and off. What I would say with the parking sensors, even though I leave them on all the time, quite a few times there's been times when they haven't actually gone off for whatever reason. But generally, even though this design is a 8-year-old design, one thing you can't knock it for is the actual quality. The quality of the car is still really, really high. And as this car was a £36,000 car new, you wouldn't be disappointed if you got this sort of quality in a £70,000-80,000 car, if I'm honest. Like I say, the main thing that lets this car down is the infotainment system and the graphics. So let's go for a drive and let's see what it's like. Okay, so out in the Audi A6 Avant 2-litre TDI SE Ultra. It's a bit of a mouthful, but yeah, it's got the 2-litre engine, which has got about 189 horsepower from what I remember, and about 295 pounds-foot of torque. It's meant to do 0 to 60 in about 8.7, 8.9 seconds, and that feels pretty doable, to be honest. And that's not bad really when you take into account with full tank of fuel, and with me on board it's nearly a 2-ton estate car, so reasonable performance. It's got a 73-litre tank, and it will do, taking it easy, it will do nearly 800 miles on the tank, which is, I think, pretty reasonable for a car this size. But talking about the engine, one thing that I have noticed, which I didn't really notice to start off with, is it does have a bit of turbo lag. As you probably would imagine with a 2-litre engine being quite small. Below about 1700 RPM, there's nothing there. I'm now at 1900 RPM in third gear, and you put your foot down and that's pretty instant. However, if you sat at 40 miles an hour in, say, fourth gear at 30 miles an hour, which I'm going to do now, I'm at about 1300 RPM, and you put your foot down and there's nothing, and there's nothing, and there's nothing. Now it's finally starting to pick up, and when it does come on song and the turbo kicks in, it's relatively rapid progress for a car this size. Now the Ultra part of the name, from what I can make out, was something Audi's done, some sort of wizardry to the engine. When I got this car 3 years ago, my wife had an Audi A3 2-litre TDI, but it wasn't the Ultra, and that was nowhere near as quiet or as smooth as what this car is. It really is very smooth. Fuel consumption, I've got it on long-term memory as just to jig my miles, jig my memory, and in the 22,700 miles I've done, I've averaged 50.4 miles to the gallon, which I think is really very, very good. Now, because this isn't the S-Line or the Sport model and it's the SE, the good thing about it for a daily driver is that it's really, really comfortable. Obviously it doesn't have hard suspension, it doesn't have low profile tyres, and what that means is you get a really nice soft cosseting ride. Obviously the downside to that is if you're ever going quick in it and going maybe quickly down some B roads, there is a little bit of body roll. However, do you really buy a car like this for blasting down B roads? Not really. Now, in the 3 years I've owned it, touch wood, like I say, it's going back in a couple of months, I haven't had any problems with it at all. Nothing, not a single thing. It's been reliable, it's been economical, it's been well built, and I am going to miss the car, I've got to be honest, because as a daily run around, it's been fantastic. The only thing that I could really say, which is a downside, which isn't a fault of the car, it's more of a fault of my own, is that I chose to spec this car with a manual gearbox. And this car absolutely suits an automatic gearbox. If I could go back 3 years, I would still have got this car. However, I would have spec'd it with an automatic box. But talking about the gearbox, one thing that is quite nice about it is it's a really short throw gearbox, and it's a small lever, and it doesn't really fit in with this car really. It's more of the short throw and the small gear stick you would more imagine with the likes of like an Mazda MX-5, that sort of thing, a little sporty car, because it is quite a sporty little gear shift, and it's quite nice to change gear. However, like I say, because of the type of car it is, if it was mine and I do it again, I'd definitely go for the automatic box. But generally, for driving wise, it's pretty good. People say the BMW 5 Series is better, which you kind of expect because, you know, it's rear wheel drive at the end of the day. In this car, it's front wheel drive. The front wheels have got to steer and power the car, so it's never going to be as good as a rear wheel drive car. I'm yet to drive the latest 5 Series, so I can't really comment. And obviously there is a new Audi A6 that came out a few months ago, and they may have improved the handling even more than this one. But for a near 2-ton estate car, the ride and handling for me is absolutely adequate. You know, I'm never going to take this car at the Nürburgring or anything daft like that. And for doing what I do, the school run, the shopping, going to work and back, the ride and handling is absolutely fine. So that pretty much concludes my 3-yearly ownership review of this Audi A6 Avant diesel. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, all that usual sort of gumph for a lot more car reviews and car talk to come. Thanks for watching. Bye.